Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for joining with us today for our session, which is in association with the Kickstart scheme. So we are running a series of sessions which we will continue to do for 6 months, and these sessions will basically help all the young professionals and Kickstarters to develop and strengthen their skill sets, which will help in advancing your career and for your overall development as well. So before we move on to the session and I give you a brief introduction about our speaker and the topic today, let me give you a quick introduction about our company and about what we do. So we provide a bespoke recruitment and freelance hiring service for the top 3% highly skilled talent. We deliver an on-demand workforce of consultants, developers, graphic designers, financial market analysts, and other professional consultants to startups and leading companies. We also have extensive experience in providing financial and technological resources for a variety of industries. So we have focused on building a talent pool of highly educated, experienced people who have worked with a wide variety of companies, as you can see here, including your Google, Amazon, Expedia, Uber, Deliveroo, Coca-Cola, and many more. So basically, Arjun Global endeavors to source market-leading talent for companies of all sizes, including from small startups to Fortune 500 companies. We also have achieved a lot of success placing Indian talent from multinational companies into roles in the UK and US. So, at our core, we are an on demand resourcing network with highly talented individuals and teams across the globe, with 1,500 plus freelance consultants across a wide range of services like graphic design, social media and digital marketing, web designers, top content writers, brand managers, developers, project managers, and many more in the financial and technological space. We are also a registered gateway provider to the Kickstart scheme, and we have completed more than 300 applications so far in the last 8 months on behalf of a lot of UK businesses. This Kickstart scheme gives a chance of employment to young and talented people who are currently on universal credit and are unemployed. The series of sessions will give the candidates an edge in areas such as problem solving, communication, cognitive flexibility to gain better understanding and self knowledge, and also will help with the emotional intelligence in the workplace. We also have taken this initiative to boost the confidence of all the young starters and professionals by offering these in-depth sessions led by knowledgeable business leaders and industry experts. So our guest speaker for today is Sir Ram Goyal, and he would be throwing light on how to awaken your inner giant, which will actually lay the foundation for your confidence and success. Let me give a brief introduction about our elite speaker today. He is a founding member and owner of the Hallmark Care Homes, which provides industry-leading residential, nursing, and dementia care to residents across 19 locations in England and South Wales. Having built an incredibly successful career through perseverance, skill, and energy, Ram is active in his philanthropic endeavors, helping multiple charities and truly making a difference. Ram has recently set up the charity Humankind Cafe with the sole purpose of tackling loneliness by providing social and recreational facilities for the local community. So, without any further delay, over to you, Ram, and we all are looking forward to hearing from you.
Good. Right, we're gonna. So, welcome, guys. So first of all, as I requested, could we switch on our screens, please? Those who can. I know there was a couple of messages from some people who can't switch their screens on for some reason. Because one of the things that somebody said to me the other day is sometimes we turn up in life, but we don't show up. Does that make sense? So, when you go to a wedding, a party, work, we all physically turn up. but it's actually when we open our mouths, communicate, that we actually show up. So if I sat on here for an hour or half an hour, didn't say a word, I would have turned up, but I wouldn't have shown up. Does that make sense? So it'd be great for you to switch your screens on, those who feel confident enough to do so. Obviously, I respect if you feel uncomfortable, that you don't want to. That's obviously your prerogative. But that's my first suggestion, is that you actually feel confident enough to switch your screen on, to be able to, for me to also gauge whether this is of interest to you or not. I mean, if again, during my talk, if you're not understanding something, this is a very interactive session. This isn't about me talking at you. So if there's any time during the session you want to ask a question, just please feel free to interrupt me, because sometimes the moment, this in the moment, you miss the moment. That's very important. So one of the things that somebody taught me very early on, and I'm not a big public speaker, is people never remember the words you say. So I've got nothing written down. I haven't got a script or anything, and I freak people out, because weddings and parties or events, I will have a few bullet points, and people go, "What are you going to talk about?" So somebody said to me, it's like, people never remember the words you say. People always remember how you made them feel. Yeah. So I'm sure you've been to lots of lectures, lots of events where you don't remember anything, and you don't even remember the person, because they recited everything off a PowerPoint or whatever. And the people that you remember are the people that actually made it either humorous, they said something which had a lasting impact on you. So I think that's just my way of doing things, and you can give me feedback at the end, did it work or not. So just give you a little bit of history about me. I'm Northern Indian, Punjabi background. I was born in India, came to the country at the age of 8 years old. So obviously very challenging in the 1970s in the UK. A lot of racism, a lot of challenges, but we relished that opportunity. We were economic migrants to the UK, lived in India for 8 years, and so worked hard. A big family of 8, 5 sisters and 3 brothers, and so we had a really good, mum and dad, a really good work ethic, because one of the things you can do in the UK, you can go on, the government give you a lot of benefits here, so you can actually, if you've got 8 children, you can earn more money by being unemployed than being employed. But fortunately for us, our parents were very enterprising, so they made sure that we worked hard, because otherwise we would not be here today if they hadn't had that work ethic. So I think also the thing they taught us, so it's very important, the values that you learn, because as I say, your attitude will determine your altitude. Yeah. So that's one thing to remember, is where you reach in life will not necessarily determine by how much you know, is by how is your attitude towards people, towards yourself, your own self-confidence, the way you think about yourself, and all of that. So we grew up in this country. I wasn't particularly academic, and looking back, I was probably dyslexic. I was never diagnosed as being dyslexia. I never passed my GCSE. At the age of 16, you take a lot of exams. I never passed my English GCSE or O level, or was it in those days? But I didn't understand why not, because I thought maybe second language, I don't get it. But now, if you read my text messages, sometimes you realize that I'm actually dyslexic. Numbers speak to me, words don't really. It's a bit of a chore. But that was really great, because obviously in business, I was very much a numbers person, and we had retail shops at the beginning, and we had shops, and we had properties, and now we've got a care home business. So I retired at Christmas from the care home business as the MD. We had a team of about 2,500 people across the 19 sites, with 4 new developments as well. So it was quite an extensive operation, and one of the things you realize is about you have to be a people person, that you have to be able to interact with people, get the best out of people, and communicate with people, because it's not your technical abilities that will get you far. It's about how can you enroll people in your vision, in your values, that will actually determine where you reach. So So I retired. I got COVID over Christmas, so I thought there's an opportunity. God's trying to tell me something. 59 years old. There's lots of things I want to do, and so one of my mottos is live rich, die poor. So most of us will probably die, and you've probably seen people around you will die the richest they've ever been, and that's probably a tragedy because they've left all of the things they wanted to do too late. So I think God's, maybe a wake-up call for me. So obviously, I've been working with Hemel and the other charities and looking at doing other things as well. So yeah, so that's now I've got 2 children, and also I've been married for 30 years. So Nisha and Ashish. So one of my values was that how do I instill the same values in my children as my parents instilled in us? Because empty pockets teach you a lot. Unfortunately, when you've got resources, how do you then communicate with your children? How do you allocate resources where they don't become spoilt brats? So that was one of my visions, was how do you actually bring up children that have values and all of that? So one of the things, when you don't have anything, it's much easier when you have resources. So one of the things I realized quite early on was get them involved in some of the charities and help other people. So and you've got to lead by example. So so one of the things somebody told me once was most people try and find happiness through making things bigger and better and whatever, right? So bigger car, bigger house, bigger salary and everything else. But one thing that you'll never be able to replicate is your first experience. So when you got your first car, your first job, your first house, some of you probably too young to have those things, but you'll never be able to replicate that experience. And we try to do that by making it bigger and better. So one of the things I learned early on was if you help somebody else do that, you can live in their experience. You can live and enjoy their experience of doing it for the first time. So that's why I love helping other people, because when you see the joy on their face when they get their first job or their first car or their first business, you can actually share that joy with them, because there's nothing like it. So that was the sort of things that, I shared that with my children, took them everywhere with me, in business. So if we wanted to go and see a property on a weekend, I said, come along, let's go for a dinner. And on the way, we'd go and see this property. So they got used to that work ethic, the culture, and the values. More importantly, actually, the values. So I would say today they've probably got higher level. The values are far higher even than me, and they challenge me and being in terms of ethics and everything else. So a little bit about me. So please feel free. I mean, if I don't get interrupted, I'll feel like I'm just ranting at you guys. So it's really important that if you like something or you want to question something, you unmute yourself and raise a question. Because I find it, sometimes you have these Q&A sessions afterwards and people have forgotten or they missed the moment. So just feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. So one of the things that, we've done some self-development. Yep, please feel free to unmute yourself. Someone's put their hand up.
Hi Ram, this is Ankit this side from India. Hope you are healthy and safe. So when you say that generally you experience, so first time what you experience for something, you might not be able to experience the same thing again if you do that similar thing or maybe a bigger thing. But if you do it through someone or you experience it through someone, you will be able to do it. So can you give an example of something like that? Means however you felt something like that when you experienced something and again you experienced it through someone else.
Absolutely. So I obviously have a house I live in. I bought years ago, and I've got a friend of mine who I went to see him in Nottingham. He was renting a property, so he was renting a flat. So I could see that with the resources I had, I could easily help him buy a house. So there was a house in an auction, and so I said, look, can you go and have a look at this house? It's in the auction next Tuesday. We're gonna. I think I went up as well. So we went to see the house on the Tuesday. It was It was guided at 60,000 in the auction. We liked it. It was in a good area, nice schools and everything else. So Tuesday went to the auction. We bid 81,000. Bought the house for him. So he didn't have the resources to do it at the time. So bought the house. and refurbished it, helped him refurbish it, and then he obviously, here we get quite good mortgages. So within the year, he was able to get a mortgage for 90,000, which is the cost of the house plus the refurbishment, paid me all my money back, and now he lives in a house where the mortgage is £200 a month instead of paying £750 a month, and he's got equity in the house, so the house is worth about, I think he's recently sold it for 160 and bought another house. I've helped him buy another house now, and he's refurbished that as well. So he's built up 40, 50,000 pounds worth of equity in that. And I have properties, I have 50 flats here and 50 flats there. That house means more to me because when I visit him, because it's personal, it's real for him, than all my properties and everything else. So those things mean a lot more than the investments and the income, which obviously you need. But when you make it personal, you make it real, and you help somebody on that journey. And he's a delightful guy, and it's good karma. I'll tell you a little other story. There was a king. So this king said to his disciples, his kingdom, his people, he said, "Can somebody come and see me? That I want to take my money with me when I die." So everybody's laughing at him and saying, "He's mad. This guy's mad. He's never going to be able to do this." So one of his people that lived in his kingdom said, I know how to do that." So the king was very happy. So the king said, "Look, I'll pay you, lots of money if you tell me how to do this." So the king said, "I'm really happy to see you. Can you tell me how I take my money with you?" So the guy said to the king, he said, "When you go abroad, what do you do? So do you take your rupees with you when the guys live in India?" So no, I change them to pounds or dollars or yen wherever I go. So he said, "You convert your money into a currency that people in the other country understand." So yeah, he goes, "Yeah, I understand that." So then he said to the king, he said, "Well, in your afterlife, what this currency that you got here, it doesn't work there. So you've got to convert your currency into good karma. So if you convert your currency into good karma, you can take it with you." So this is what I see is that what we're missing in life is we don't always understand life the way it presents itself. So it's like finding solutions, when everybody else in the kingdom was laughing at this guy and saying, "Look, he's mad and he's bought or whatever." But if we can find solutions to people's problems, that would, that's what I see, is that if we can, the same for me, like I said, was live rich and die poor, is most people die the richest they've ever been. And that's a tragedy. So, and they missed the opportunity. And luckily or unluckily, I got COVID. And also I was doing some of this before, but it's accelerated some of what I was doing. So the other thing I wanted to share with you, so thank you for that question. Hopefully that gave you an answer that was.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Good. The other thing I wanted to touch on is one of the most important things is listening. Yeah. So if I said to you guys that we actually never ever listen, what would you say? We don't listen. Yeah. So what I'm saying to you today, you're not actually listening to me. Yeah. So you're thinking, what's he talking about? Of course I'm listening. Yeah. So one of the things that's very powerful is listening. Listening is probably the most powerful thing, right? Because one of the things that I read somewhere was you never learned anything new from talking. Yeah. You never learned anything new from talking. Yeah. So when I say to you, you're not listening to me. So what I mean by that is that you have this little voice in your head. So if I keep quiet for about 10 seconds or 15 seconds, you get to experience this little voice. And if your brain says, "What little voice?" That's that little voice. Can you hear that little voice talking to you? "Oh, this is good. This is not good. I've got other things to do. This is, what's he on about? I don't really understand it. Yeah, this is good. I like this." So what happens in life is, if you've been wearing glasses, sometimes you wear sunglasses, right? and you go out, it's hot and it's sunny and everything else. And what happens after a while, you forget you're wearing sunglasses, right? And then suddenly you come inside and you think it's dark. And then suddenly you realize you've got sunglasses on. Yeah, and you take your sunglasses off and it's not as dark as you thought. So listening is like that. We have a filter, yeah, and we listen through that filter. Make sense? So we listen in a certain way. So you might be listening to me. So when I started talking to you, and I said I had 2,500 people working for me, suddenly what you thought of me changed, yeah? If I said to you, I've got a Ferrari, your thought might change. If I said to you, I do charity work, you listen to me differently. So every time I say something, you listen to me in a very different way. If I said, I met Bill Clinton last week, or Barack Obama, or I know my best friend's Richard Branson, you'd listen to me in a certain way. That make sense? So, sorry, and get you put your hand up.
Yeah, so sorry to actually ask
No,
you another
it's
question.
good.
Yeah, so so it's my personal understanding. So as a human being or as a person, we have certain thoughts in our mind, and basis that we make our listening. So we base our listening on that piece. So if a person in front of me is saying 5 things, but I have certain thoughts already running in my mind, and accordingly I set my listening standards according to that. So he might be saying 5, but I am only listening to 3. Is that true? Will you hold that statement right?
Yeah, no, I think it's slightly different. What I'm getting at is, so for example, if I'm talking to you, what's happening is your little voice in your head is interpreting what I'm listening. Not about whether you listen to everything or not. What I'm getting at here is, so if I'm saying something to you, so for example, I say India is the best country in the world, you know, to live in. Yeah. So you'll go, depending on your background and your filters and all of those things, you'll go, yeah, that's true. Or somebody go, what's he talking about? You know, there's so much corruption, so much this and so much that. So every single person in the world, probably certainly on the screen here, will hear something different, or agree with me or disagree with me or whatever. So that's the difference. What I'm saying is, I will say the same thing, that India is the best place to live, or whatever, you know, I don't know, Chinese food is the best food to eat. But everyone will have an opinion about that. Your little voice will go, oh, that's not true. Oh yeah, it's true. Of course, I love Chinese food. So in the same way, say for example, you go into your boss and you ask him, I've got this brilliant idea. You know, can you have 10 minutes of your time? And he says, not now. So all he said was not now. But what will you make it mean? He's not interested in me. He's always like this. I can't be bothered. I'll never bring him another idea again. Yeah, but all he said was, not now. So he said not now, but everybody on the screen will hear something different. That little voice in your head will interpret that as something completely different. So the idea with that little voice in your head, the power around the little voice in your head, is distinguishing what happened and what you made it mean. That makes sense? So we're all meaning-making machines.
So if I understand it, so it's like we interpret any statement as per our own thought process or the experiences that we have or we had in the past. So we
Absolutely.
interpret those statements as per our own requirement or as per our own judgment.
Absolutely. But I think the problem we have is we don't understand it as our own judgment. We think of it as real.
Yeah.
And that's the only reality that we have.
Right.
Yeah. So the moment that you actually change it from, that's one possible way of looking at it, gives you power. That makes sense? Because you can look at something in many different ways. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name.
It's Georgie, I guess. Yeah.
Georgie.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say.
Don't be first of all.
Can
I say something? First of all, I've given you permission to ask questions. So starting off by saying sorry, you're actually contributing to the group. Yeah. So other people may be thinking of the same question, and you've got the courage to put your hand up and ask me a question, and the first thing you say is sorry. Make sense? So
Yeah,
let me just finish. Let me just finish. So what I'm saying is, have confidence when you're asking a question. Ask it with confidence. Starting the sentence with sorry doesn't. What does it? If I said to you when I opened up and I started talking to you, sorry, what would you think? Like, what's he doing here? Right? That makes sense. So what I'm just suggesting to you, please don't start off a sentence with sorry.
okay,
Because I've already given you permission to speak.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just wanted to make a remark. So I think when you're rich, you should give to charity throughout all the time, like even if you're healthy, unhealthy, because then it will return to you in the future if you have faith in God.
Sorry, so can I? So what I've understood from that is, if you've got money and you're rich, you should help. You should give to charity. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you should do that, right?
Yeah.
But this is exactly what I'm saying about how we listen. So you made a statement. Will everybody in the world agree with you? And even people who agree with you won't do it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, how we listen is we have a certain point of view, and through either the papers we read, the upbringing we have, the family we grew up in, our father's opinion, our mother's opinion, our uncle's opinion, and all of that. So what we're really getting at is, what is your opinion? What do you really think? Yeah, we don't know. We eat the same things as might be something that your mum gave you, but do you like it? Why do you like it? So it's getting back to the core of who are you? And that goes back to the self-confidence thing about, we can, with the young people of this world, give them self-confidence about, I'm enough. I am, because you're unique, right? Every single person on this screen is unique. There's no two people alike apart from maybe identical twins. And even they turn out very differently. Does that make sense? So going back to the listening, is every single person, if we had a...
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute because I've got a point. I think it's important to also understand that everybody have their own prejudices, and the external factors from our culture, what our upbringing has been, and whether we like it or not, the way that influences you will be different to how it influences someone else. And while what you're saying is very important, I think it's also important to make sure that people who are listening to you today don't try to mirror your ways of living, because everybody is unique, as you said, and everybody will have a very different perception, and we call it perception and optics. But what is very important is they remain true to themselves. Everybody has a purpose in life. Absolutely. They need to fulfill their own purpose and not try to be too influenced by the purpose of others. They can be inspired by somebody, but Absolutely. They have to remain themselves.
Oh, I totally agree with you, because this is not about me going, what I do. This is again going back to the listening, is not about, oh, what Ram said is right or wrong. It's like, what do you think? And getting to the core of what you really believe and think. But the other part of that is what you said about prejudices, and we have our own opinions and everything else. But we also have what's called, so if you, who drives a car? Anybody drive a car on the screen here? People drive cars? So if you've ever been in a car and you want to overtake somebody, and how many times have you had a situation where a car comes past you and you didn't see it coming? We all had that experience, right? So this is what we call in driving, motoring, is like, it's a blind spot. You didn't see the car. So unfortunately in life, we also have blind spots. We don't always know our prejudices, but we don't, because we think they're real. We don't think of it as a prejudice. I don't like so-and-so, and I don't like so-and-so, I do this or I do that. The problem with human beings is, whatever they understand or believe, they think is real. It's not, and I think what I'm trying to impress upon you is that a lot of what we believe is because we have so many different opinions, right? So which one is real? So I've got another question here.
Ha, can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Ha, Jai Shri Krishna Ram.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. So my question, and I guess a point of reflection as well, and it's from a position of curiosity. So I understand this idea of a subjective universe and the filters in the mind, or the tradition I belong to anyway, we call it vasanas and sanskaras in the super unconscious. Now, there's a particular charity which a friend of mine has founded. It's called Love Language, and you can check them out as well. They're a BSL translation and training company, and not the love language which your brother Avnish talks about, the book, but it's the Naomi, the founder, was inspired by the book. And so there's 400, to give numbers, there's 430 million deaf people in the world who can't hear. Now, in terms of the internal narrative, when you say there's a voice in the mind and the voice is talking and the voice is saying, and the voice perhaps has a language, maybe, if someone's deaf or deaf from birth, like these 430 million people, to give a number, in the world, in your opinion, or your knowledge and know-how, what would their voice be? Because they've never heard sound, or they've comprehended the idea of voice, and it's 5% of the world's population. And secondly, what advice, or what can you sort of tell them about this idea of them being, or to empower them, that there is a kind of inner understanding of reality and the world, and for us that might be in the form of a voice or a narrative based on our conditionings, but what could it be for them, in your experience, the deaf community? Thank you, Ram Goyal.
Thank you for that question. To be honest, I have very little knowledge of that community, so whatever I would be saying, I would be guessing. But I think one of the things that what we do in meditation, I guess, is that we try to control that inner voice. We try to calm that inner voice, because for most people, the voice is running at 100 miles an hour. So through meditation, through yoga, we try to calm that voice. And I think the problem with society that we have at the moment is that there's so many distractions and people vying for our attention through social media. And this is where I think some of the challenges in society is coming from, is that voice is becoming it's racing ahead. And so most people struggle to sleep, insomnia, relationships, all of those. And we're all in the same boat. Yeah, I think I wouldn't like to even probably guess in terms of people who don't have language, but I think probably maybe they have a level of inner peace. And I think you can also, I think somebody put on the group, on the chat, was they will interpret it in a different way, but I don't know what that would be. So I probably leave that to far more learned people than me to make comments.
I'd like to just interrupt there and ask you something as well, just as you kind of touched on that point about having a stable situation of peace. So I just wanted to share that I have a young cousin, a young nephew actually, sorry, is my nephew, who's traveling from India to study in Canada. Now, he's been pampered his whole life. He's 18 years old. His parents have looked after him very carefully. Doesn't have very strong English. He's, a foreign student, as it were, as many people, across the UK are, or, people have come into London, different backgrounds, just like young people facing, the challenges of life right now. He actually had to quarantine when he's going to Canada in Serbia. So he got stuck, and unfortunately, he caught COVID while he was in Serbia. So now has to quarantine for another 14 days before being able to travel on to Canada. And now this is somebody with poor English schools, forget about Serbian, and life skills as well. Lacking an ability to really survive alone, and to navigate difficulty and challenges. And I think, this generation is facing, like maybe earlier generations, it was purely economic, but now you have to face much greater moral issues, our environment, animal welfare, climate change, and the impact of COVID, and all of these other factors that are thrown in front of this generation that's just graduating now, or the Kickstarters who are looking for work and navigating difficulty. in the time that I've known you, you seem like a very resilient person who can navigate difficulty or hold stability during difficulty, at least, you know, like that many things will be thrown at you, but you have to remain stable and, you know, navigate that difficulty in a certain way. What's your advice for my young nephew in Serbia and other people like him who are struggling to pay rent or don't have money to work, like have to decide, you know, do I go to class or do I study? You know, do I sleep with 4 people in this room to save £30 a week of rent and struggling? You know, people like that in a real difficult in the now situation economically and mentally.
Yeah, I mean, that's awfully, I guess sometimes it's easy when you come out at the other end to give advice because these are very challenging times. But I guess you can either turn that into a sort of a sob story or into something that he'll write a book about when he's older. So I remember my dad, when he arrived in the UK, they wouldn't let him in 1970. So didn't speak the language, didn't have credit cards, didn't have money, had no mobile phones. So I think they sent him back to India. And India said, this guy's got a British passport, we're not going to have him back. He went to Tokyo. Then somebody in Tokyo said, well, if you go to Paris, they might let you into Paris. And then my auntie, who drove from Cardiff to Paris, picked him up. So I'm sure he went through a lot of adversity and a lot of uncertainty and everything else. But you know, when we talked to him, that was probably one of his most telling stories of how he faced adversity. So I think it's how you take adversity and challenge and turn it into something positive. And then you can look back on it, because you know my children are not going to have those stories to tell of how, you know, all of those challenges they had to face. So I think the other thing is, you know, I've done some Tony Robbins stuff, and one of the things he says is find your why. So for young people, particularly, I think if you have a big enough why, the how looks after itself. So I'll tell you a story. So this young man, there's a man, he comes home from work, and his daughter says to him, Daddy, 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 you're going to die. And the guy says, you know, darling, what are you talking about? I'm not going to die. She said, no, but my teacher told me that if you smoke, you die. He said, no, but that's not always true. But she said, but you couldn't you, Daddy? And he said, well, you know, maybe, but, you know, so he said, well, why are you crying? Why are you so sobbing? Why are you so upset? She said to him, she said, Daddy, I wanted you to be there at my wedding. So I can't take a chance that you won't be there. So guess what he does? He gives up smoking, right? So most of us are trying to use willpower to change our lives. Yeah. You know, we stop eating for a little while, and then a few days later, it's like, well, that was too much like hard work. Or, you know, we try a new job or a new situation, and it's like the honeymoon period, and then it becomes more difficult. So I always say to my team is, we're not here to make you happy. Yeah. We as Hallmark, and we've got a lot of happy people, but we're not here to make you happy. You bring happiness to the job. Yeah. So people will look at me and go, hold on a minute. So in the same way, actually, when my kids were younger, I went on this course and it said, it's not your job to make your kids happy. Because guess what? If you make it your job to make your kids happy, guess what they will be all their lives? Unhappy, because you made it your job to make them happy. You took that responsibility. And unfortunately, like you said, your nephew is pampered and all of that. His parents probably took on the responsibility of making him happy. But when he gets out into the real world, people don't care. He's not going to have his parents around him all the time, and people are not going to know his history, and he was pampered and he was looked after and all of that. So the idea is to make your children resilient, because the world doesn't care. And
I think that's so important. I think it's like what you said there is really worth reflecting on, especially, you know, because people lack personal interaction now a lot more as well, because of the screens they can hide behind, you know, tech a lot more and not really get face-to-face relationship engagement as much. Don't expect to receive happiness as something that you receive from consumption, but bring happiness and be happy and bring joy and bring that, you know, to a situation, right?
Yeah, and I think people, this is part of why we're talking today. A lot of people haven't heard this before. So this is what I was saying to you earlier on about listening is, we only learn things from our peer group. So another comment that I've heard, and is so powerful, you become the average of your peer group. Most people try to change themselves, right? So period. So if you take nothing away from it today, is if you want to change yourself, change your peer group. I'm not saying get rid of your existing friends. Find people that you want to be like. So if you youngsters here, if you knocked on the door of a millionaire and said, I want to know what you did, he'll tell you. You build rapport with him, you build a relationship with him, he'll tell you. And if you mix it with those people enough, then you won't have to try very hard. So change your peer group. If you immerse yourself, you mix with the right people, you will automatically, guaranteed, automatically. You see people, you see families walking down the street. Guess what? If they're overweight, more than likely they're all overweight because there's nobody there to challenge them. In families, you see people who are successful. The whole family is successful because they emulate. They see each other. They watch each other. They see what other people are doing. So I think it's really important that people really get to take personal responsibility for their actions and for the outcomes. Because if you blame people, if you go into a job and say, there was another story somebody was telling me. This young chap went to his boss and said, "You don't pay enough. You don't pay enough. You can never demand a pay rise, right? So you never pay enough." He said, "You mean we don't pay you enough?" He goes, "Yeah, okay, you don't pay me enough." He said, "Do we pay in this company people 10 times more than you?" He said, "Yeah." So he went from, "You don't pay me enough," to, "Well, you don't pay enough in this company," to, "Well, you don't pay me enough." So what does he need to do to get a pay rise? He needs to develop skills. He needs to become somebody that the company will, if he actually ever said, "I'm leaving," they'll ask him, "Why are you leaving? And can you stay? We'll pay you more money," as opposed to, "Thank God he's gone." Yeah. So this is what I think is important for the next generation, is to take that personal responsibility, is to understand what employees are looking for. And, one of the simple things is, integrity. If somebody tells you to do something, somebody gives you a task to do, you fulfill that task. And if you can't, you come back and tell the person that you're managing you or your boss or whatever that you couldn't do it, and you'll do it tomorrow, or these were the obstacles that got in the way. Unfortunately, I mean, this is common practice, is people either think, "Oh, I won't do it," or "can't do it," or "it's too hard," and hopefully the other person will forget. And then when they ask them 3 days later, they come up with a story about what happened, right? So I think, I can't remember where I'm reading this in this book. So this guy was in the sales business. So he was tasked to make 19 calls every day. Yeah. So guess what? There was loads of salespeople there. So the people who had made 25 calls, guess what? They came forward and said, "What?" They asked at the end of each day, they asked everybody, "How many calls did you make?" So the people who had made more than 19 calls, guess what? They were happy to tell you how many calls they made, right? I made 30 calls. I made 25 calls. I made 24 calls. Guess what? The people who didn't make 19 calls, what did they tell you? They started telling you their story. So the boss was like, "Well, I'm sorry. I've got a little box. I can only put a number in there. How many calls you made? I don't have space to put your story in there." Yeah. Does that make sense? So when we don't do something, guess what? We don't give the facts. We want to tell people our story. So if you're the sort of person that has to tell the story, take a look. Or did you commit to something that was unachievable? Yeah, there's only, a non-exec used to tell us, he drummed this into us, there's only three reasons why something doesn't get done. Wrong objective, wrong timescale, wrong person. Write that down. He's drummed it into us. We paid a lot of money for it. If there's anything in your life, in your workplace, that isn't getting done, it was the wrong objective. Like we wanted to triple sales in 6 months. So we want triple sales. That's not possible in certain businesses, or in 6 months timescale, or we gave it to the wrong person. Does that make sense? Is everybody with me? Is everybody following what I'm saying,
100%.
or am I losing people? Or
So Ram, I have a query here.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when you say that obviously there should not be any place for a story when you are not able to do a job given to you. So as you said, there can be reasons that you are the wrong person or the wrong job given or the wrong time scale, everything. But there can be certain situations wherein due to unforeseen events, you couldn't do an activity or a job that was assigned to you. So in that scenario, how would you handle that situation? Will you go upfront and tell your manager or your boss that these are the things that I face challenge with and I might not be able to do it, or rather you wait for the things to get the day to get over and then you say that you couldn't do it because of this and this unforeseen events? How would you tackle that situation?
Absolutely. There's no one answer fits all. So there's obviously, there are times when things won't get done. And so there might be when you're given the task. So how many times have you sat in a boardroom or a meeting or whatever, and everybody's saying things, but nobody actually believes this is going to happen? Yeah. We're talking about things and you say, well, let's get this done and this time scale, and everybody, if people were being honest, the elephant in the room is nobody believes this is going to get done. So who's got the courage to say, sorry guys, this is unachievable? And there will be times when, but I think the thing with this is, is that it's about a pattern. So if you see a pattern in your life of you're constantly having to tell stories about why you couldn't achieve, then it's something for you to reflect on. This is all about self-reflection and self-awareness. Is this working for me or it's not working for me? And also what happens after a while is if you're the one that has to tell stories because you don't have the courage or you don't have the skills or whatever, guess what? When the promotion comes, they're not going to choose you for that promotion. Yeah.
So just a counter question, not
Yeah,
a counter question, actually, just a follow-up question, actually.
Yeah,
so say at times I have been in that situation, I have not been able to, and I accept my mistake and I say that, yes, I have not been able to, and it's a mistake at my end. So in a corporate scenario, because I work in a corporate, so how will you see that thing that I'm accepting my mistake upfront? And it's not a regular thing, but yes, 1 or 2 instances I have upfront accepted my mistake that yes, it's a lack at my end. So will that hold good, this kind of attitude that yes, at times when I'm doing a mistake, I'm accepting it and I'm ready to face the thing or the any consequence that might happen because of that?
So I think I've got to give you a health warning. I've never worked for anybody in my life. So okay. I'm probably, I could give you advice in terms of, so if somebody gets fired tomorrow because they went up and admitted their mistakes, it might, I don't want to cause any unnecessary, but this is not about a one-time event. This is about what works in your life. So this isn't just about work life, this could be in your personal life. I think the thing with this is, unfortunately, human beings have made talk cheap. Does that make sense? So we say things that we're going to do or we're committed to, and guess what? Nobody believes it. We don't believe it even. So we've actually made our integrity so cheap. So we actually don't believe ourselves. So why do we think other people should believe us? That makes sense?
Agree. Yep.
Yeah. So I think this is something for all of us to reflect is, what is your integrity worth?
Right.
That makes sense?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I add something? Can I
add
something?
I
would respond.
So first of all, sorry, go on, Kelvin.
I would respond to that is that, you know, if you're genuinely passionate about your work, you work hard, but there is something that plays against that, you have to be, I mean, we talk about integrity. You have to be upfront and say, I've done my best, but I haven't been able to deliver because of this. And you shouldn't feel bad about this. That is I would say if you want the best outcome, that is how you should play it.
I mean, that's certainly the culture in the UK. So I know different countries have very different cultures, and certainly in the UK, people are upfront. And one of the things I always say to people, once you earn a certain level of salary, certainly in the UK, this is my experience, you never have to look for another job, because headhunters, I mean, obviously, Hemel, you're in this industry, is we always look for people who are not looking for a job. You know, when I look for a new general manager, the people I'm looking for is not people who are constantly doing the rounds of worked here for a year, 2 years here, 6 months here. I'm looking for somebody stable in 7 years, 8 years in the job, who is absolutely not looking for a great team, loves their people, done phenomenally well. So I've got to find an inkling. You've got to find that little catch of either giving them a different opportunity. And a lot of them are not about the money, because the current boss is paying them a lot of money because they know the value of that individual. So you've got to find a way to catch that person. So all I would say is keep working on yourself, become the person. I think there's another phrase which I love, is it says, success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. So I'll say that again. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Because we had recently the Bank of England governor, they got the guy from Canada over, right? So I'm sure he did not apply for that job. Yeah. They paid a recruitment consultant probably £1 million, traveled across to Canada, took him out for dinners, sold him the job, brought him over first class or on a private jet, met with the current governor or the chancellor or whatever. Yeah. So once you get to, I mean, this is an extreme example, but once you get to a certain stage, people will recognize your ability. Certainly in this country, I'm not sure I can speak for the whole of the, from different cultures and different areas, but people generally will recognize your ability, your sincerity, your integrity. And if you can hold those, and this is the challenge, you see, if integrity was easy, everybody would have integrity, right? So, but unfortunately, we always sometimes look for, if you're late for work, then, there's a traffic jam, you actually relishing the traffic jam, because now you've got a genuine excuse genuine excuse on why I'm late. You was going to be late anyway, but now you can say, well, the traffic was really bad. But sometimes that's where the blind spot is. Like, well, there are people I'm sure that are working for your company that they go, which excuses you're going to come up with next? So we have a certain listening of ourselves. Yeah. So does that make sense? So there's a certain way people listen to us. Do we have, so we have a non-exec. So if he doesn't turn up for a meeting, we ring him and say, is everything okay? Because he's normally 15 minutes there before the meeting. He sits in the car, he's ready for the meeting, he's preparing for the meeting. Whereas some people, they don't turn up for the meeting, you go, yeah, but they're always late. So people have a certain listening of us, whether in the workplace, whether at home, whatever. And this is where the blind spot is. Sometimes, unless you've got friends and people, your peer group will challenge you and tell you what that is, you're not going to know it. Yeah. So the 360 degrees, make sure you have friends who can be very honest with you about how it is. So they can share with you your blind spot. So when people come to our house for dinner, I always say to them, please feel free to tell us how it is. Because if you tell us it was brilliant and it was really great, we'll give it to you next time. And then don't complain. So be honest, because at the end of the day, your taste may be different to ours and everything. But also what happens is the companies that do the best ask for feedback. Because my wife's such a brilliant cook. So if you go to stay in a hotel or go somewhere and they've done a really bad job, it's very rarely they're going to ask you for feedback. They're not going to ask you to fill in a questionnaire or fill in a form or ask you how it went, right? So whereas, say you fly with Virgin, they want to know what the feedback is, because mostly it's brilliant. And also what happens is when you ask for feedback, it changes people's behavior. So when you have in the UK, when you have your windscreen changed and the guy who changed your windscreen gives you the tablet and says, can you rate me? Can you tell the company how I was with you today? Guess what? If he didn't have to do that, he'd be different. So you get, certainly I've experiences with Uber in the UK, because everybody's rated. They ask you, do you want some water? Which charger is your phone? Which way do you want to go home? they're bending over backwards to get that 5 score and that tip. That makes sense?
Perfectly said, Ram. Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. And considering the short time we have, I think we should have extended this session to at least 2 hours, and we could have just listened to you nonstop. But yeah, I respect everyone's time, and so I think we'll just take one last question if we have any from the audience.
I think it'd be good to give me feedback, because I think hopefully if it's good, I'd like to hear that. If it's not good, I wouldn't want to subject somebody else to this 1 hour session.
I liked it. I liked it. Ram, you said it the way it is, and you were bold, and I think you've given a lot of great insights to everybody on the call. So thank you.
I think
Yeah, do you have
Africa,
hand up,
you have a
Africa?
question. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for your time and everything that you've been talking about. My question is that if you face kind of problems at work, maybe you're kind of struggling with a task and things like that, at what point does it become an employer's responsibility to kind of help you through that and give you the right training? How do you?
I think HR and your boss should be sitting with you on a regular basis and making sure you have the tools to do the job and the training to do the job. But I think the other thing people need to do as well, what we do in our company, we do only for senior management, we do personality profiling. So one of the things I see with this is sometimes people are in the wrong job. So if you're struggling in your job, generally, sometimes it can be that people are not, it's not that they're bad people. And somebody said to me the other day, there was somebody that working in the company who really was a bit indifferent, wasn't quite getting it, and we was not really sad to see her go. And he said, "Oh, so and so is working for me. He has a baby sensory business where they look after children." He said, "Oh my God, she's amazing at what she does here." But is this the same person you're talking about? So I would say is profile yourself and see what areas are you in a job that's actually fit, is right for you in terms of your own personality as well, your profile. So if somebody said to me, I don't know, network or whatever, for me, that's sometimes maybe not quite what I would like to do. So I'd struggle and I'd come home and I'd be tired and I'd be exhausted. Whereas, for somebody else, like my brother, for example, he loves it. So, when somebody says to him at 10 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night, let's go and party, he's like, yeah, I'm ready. So, where do you get your energy from? So that's really important to profile yourself, see where you get your energy from, make sure you're in the right job, make sure you're talking to your team, be proactive and ask for that training. And I know it's not easy, but at the end of the day, because I hear this all the time, people complain about their companies. People say, my company is awful and this, that, and the other. And I say, how long have you been here? And they go, 10 years. So you've been complaining for 10 years about your job. So, if you've got the skill set and you profile yourself, there are people out there. And I've taken people on and they go, oh my God, I didn't realize there's companies out there that will value me and train me and whatever. So it's really important that you find those companies as well. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And people are looking for people who are looking to be trained and developed and everything else. So it's really important that you make sure that, we only have one chance of this. This is real, this is our life. Make sure you're in the right job with the right people that you enjoy working with. And there are people out there, and it's risky. So, do you leave a job that is okay to something that may not even be okay? But as they say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Ram, for that. Yeah.
That's a great line. I like that one, Ram. And I think what you said about constructive feedback and positive constructive feedback is really important as well, right? Like that, from management as well as new staff, you can't expect staff to know everything, as well as you can't expect, management to understand things if they're not told. So I think there's that communication is critical, isn't it? That, if there is a struggle point, management's aware, or if there's a difficulty that's being raised, that the communication is constructive and truthful and honest. I think if I was to take one word to give one feedback about today, Ram, I would say that it's about truth. It's about expressing truth quickly and effectively and using it. At least something that
Absolutely.
I've heard today.
The other thing to do is please listen to TED Talks. Somebody will give you 15 minutes distilled what they've learned in a lifetime. So, listen to TED Talks, listen to things you're interested in, listen, the thing we have at our fingertips now, we have a mobile phone that will give you any information that you want. You could be trained in anything you want. People cook, they do all sorts of stuff. People have learned a huge amount through social media, the internet, Google, and everything else. But one of the things that the challenge now is not information. Yeah, because there's an answer for every question that you may have. And you can ask Google that answer, right? And you can read that answer. But what's the question that you're asking? The most important thing is, what's the question that you're asking? So if you ask a lousy question, you get a
lousy answer.
So if you ask a question is like, why am I so stupid? Yeah. So ask a question that's very empowering. That will get you the right answer. So ask a question that's worthy of yourself. So
Rightly said, Ram.
Sorry?
Rightly said. I mean, the session was really good, and I have just one feedback to give you, that I will think a lot of things today, before going to bed, on what you said, and I definitely think that these were the things which I used to think earlier, listening skills, working on my listening skills and all of that. But I think I'm really going to work on that today. And thank you for that inspiration and, that push which you have given me, Ram. Really appreciate it.
Anybody didn't like it? I'd like to hear from somebody who didn't like it or didn't understand a word I was saying.
Okay, so I was about to say something, but you said you were asking someone who want to say negative, but I was about to say that the positivity around the thought that you have shared with us is huge. So the first thing, the way you began on that, experiencing it to others, I think that's one of the most important things that we need to learn in our lives, because happiness is something very relative. So you can get happiness in smallest of things, but getting it or experiencing it through others or through the action of others, I think that's one thing we really need to develop in this world. In today's scenario, when we rather become happy by seeing someone else going down. So I think we need to change that thinking, and we need to experience that thought process of ours and develop ourselves to be a better human being. So thank you, Ram. Thank you so much for your.
I've just picked. This is all self-taught. I don't know. Like I said to you at the beginning, I haven't written anything down. So I've just been listening to stuff, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I think the final thing I want to leave you with is build rapport, do stuff for people, do something for somebody else that will want to help you. Because if you said to your boss, I want some time with you, I want some help from you or whatever, he may be in little or no interest from that. But if you find out what he was interested in, so say, for example, your boss was interested in cooking and he loved taking his son out on cookery classes, and you said, actually, I'm going to invite you to a cooking class with your son, guess what he'll do? He'll come, right? And he'll remember you. So find out who people you want to spend time with, what they're interested in, and invite them to do that. Because if you said to them, I want some of your time, I'm really struggling, it's not working out for me, oh my God, all of that story and the noise, it may or may not work, I don't know. But if you found out what they were interested in, the person that you want to spend time with, whether it's maybe, I don't know, whatever it may be, they may have an interest or hobby or something, and you said, let's take you to that football or cricket or whatever. And more likely than not, they'll go, oh my God, you took the time, first of all, to find out. And secondly, you're inviting me to something I'm interested in. Not what you're interested in, something they're interested in. And you build that rapport, it'll stay with you for life. Good.
Thank you so much, Ram, for this session and for your time. We really appreciate it. And I thank everyone else also who have taken out time for joining this session. And thank you for inspiring all of us, Ram.
Sorry, Manisha, I just want to say that actually what you just picked up is, without you, this session wouldn't exist. So I think I want to acknowledge you, actually, for all of you, for turning up today and contributing and asking questions. And because of, one of the, sorry, like there's so many nuggets here that when you share something and ask a question, you contribute to other people. Like Aniket and other people who ask questions, is you've actually brought the session alive by asking those questions. Otherwise, it'd be very monotonous of me saying lots of stuff and people not quite getting it or getting it. But when you ask questions, you participate. You're giving a gift to others. By not sharing and not participating, you're being stingy and holding things to yourself. Because people wait till they've got the perfect question, or I'm not going to ask it yet. I'll wait till later. I'm shy, and all those things. They're all true, but so what? I'll remember some of you, and the other people I won't even know. So this is the same in your company. Do you want to get noticed? Do you want to show up, or you just turn up? Good. Anyway.
I think that's a thought which we all will, think today and obviously work on it as well.
Good.
So
all right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ram, for taking out time and, inspiring us. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mr. Goyal. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.